This is Dunc Holder on Sports 1280, New Orleans.
In olden times, this would have led the show today. Saints schedule coming out. We might have devoted an entire show of just our mock schedules, just where they might go, when will they play them. It would have taken up an hour of the show. Today it takes about 5 minutes, 10 minutes, because what else are you going to talk about other than you know who they play now later on tonight, 7 p.m. And I'm sure someone somewhere will leak something about the schedule along the way throughout the Twitter spheres and whatnot. But we will find out your life in the fall. You already know your LSU football life, your Tulane football life, since I need to mention them equally on equal ground.
Your Nichols football life, we know that.
Yeah, Nichols, that too. UNO doesn't have football, so I can't mention it. Oh, well. Tomato, potato. Anyway, we know the Saints will play all of their divisional foes home and away. At home, they'll play the Eagles, Washington, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, and the Rams. On the road, they will go to Dallas, the Giants, Baltimore, Cincinnati, and be skull-clapping one more time up in Minnesota. And I'm sure we all anticipate more than one primetime game, which is what they ended up having in the regular season last year on a Thursday night. I'm assuming we're going to be seeing, I would say, 3 at a minimum. I assume that over-under is low to me. 3 is low.
That's the over 3.5. Let's make the over-under 3.5.
3.5's fair.
So I'm guessing 4.
I would guess 4 too.
And I'm guessing the actual games. I think Atlanta is always a favorite, matchup for the broadcast, the network broadcast teams. I think the Rams game is going to be on, and I think the Eagles for sure.
Not the Vikings?
Maybe the Vikings, yeah. So those 4, right? Vikings, Eagles, Falcons, Rams.
Maybe the only other one that I would think could bring some intrigue would be Pittsburgh.
Yes.
And that's been a primetime game before in the past. I remember, 8 years ago, the last time they came here, it was a primetime game. It was Halloween night, and that started the Saints' big winning streak. They got on a roll there, won 9 in a row before the old bummer in San Francisco, Vernon Davis and Alex Smith. People love that. No doubt about that. Love it.
Yeah, I remember the Steelers game they played on Halloween night in the Dome. Everybody was in costume. That was a great Dome experience. Classic New Orleans. Saints fans dress in costume more than most NFL fans to begin with because our history of carnival and masking.
And buffoonery.
But that one was off the charts. I mean, it seemed like half the crowd was in costume. And I could see something like that happening. That's a very attractive game. It'd be a 40-39 game with that Steelers offense, high-powered as it is.
Well, the last time they played, it was in Pittsburgh, and the Saints played very well, and Pittsburgh made it close. And I think the final score might have ended up being like 35-32, but the Saints gave up 2 touchdowns late, and it was just whatever. They rolled through that game.
They fared well against the Steelers. I mean,
they won the last 2 times they played. They won.
Right.
But, I mean, that's obviously generations of teams ago, 2011 and 2015. In football terms, those are generations. But, yeah, look, their schedule, not going to be easy. We know the division's going to be a challenge. We know you're playing a first-place schedule, and you're playing the AFC North. What's Cincinnati? I don't know. Our buddy Catherine Terrell could probably tell us better. We don't really know. Baltimore, are they going to rebound? Cleveland, you might be playing Sam Darnold. Who knows? And we just assume Pittsburgh will be pretty good. But their NFC slate is going to be top-notch. And I'm sure people that the Saints are going to be playing, they're probably circling those games as big-time games because I'm sure people around the league are anticipating the Saints are going to come in and be a very good team.
Yeah, it seems to me like the NFC is just so attractive this year because not only do you have kind of the upstart teams from a year ago that you anticipate to be good again, the Vikings, the Eagles, the Saints all kind of rose up last year, but I think you've got the marquee teams like Green Bay that lost Aaron Rodgers that you figure are going to bounce back. And I'm intrigued to see what happens with the Cowboys. They kind of fell off the map last year, but I think they're going to come back. I mean, they've got a great offensive line. You got Dak Prescott. Ezekiel Elliott will be back
for the whole year.
Yeah, I think they're going to be back in the mix. So, and then, of course, you got the Rams who rose up. I think the 49ers are an ascending organization. And then what do you make of the Seahawks? I mean, they could completely drop off, but they've got Russell Wilson. He's always going to have them competitive. So I think the NFC, there's a number of matchups. What's going to happen with the Falcons? Are they going to get back in the mix? I mean, they were a playoff team a year ago. So I think this is one of the more compelling seasons from a broadcast matchup perspective. You can make a case for a lot of different teams.
I've got curiosity with Minnesota, with Kirk Cousins, and with Washington with Alex Smith. I'm curious to see how this flip-flopping of so many quarterbacks and notable quarterbacks. Usually you don't have that. And I think you can make arguments for all kinds of intrigue throughout the schedule. So we will get the latest coming up tonight. Official, 7 p.m. That will be on all the networks. And, of course, we'll have full blast coverage on NOLA.com and in Times-Picayune. I know Josh Katzenstein will be writing a news story. I'll write a column on the schedule release later on. And that's right on the heels of the Pelicans game. So it's lots to look forward to tonight. But real quick, Brandon Coleman returning to the Saints. And you knew, at least I figured, he wouldn't be offered a restricted free agent tender. So I'm guessing his deal to come back is less than $1.9 million. But Willie Snead has until end of business tomorrow to sign an offer sheet with another team. Doesn't look like that's going to happen at this rate. If it does, I wouldn't blame him, because now you've got at wide receiver Michael Thomas, Ted Ginn, Cameron Meredith's here coming from the Bears. Brandon Coleman's back. And now you got Willie Snead. You got 5 viable receivers, but what do you do with them all? I'm curious to see the moving parts, and are you intrigued to draft one? I think that's curiosity too.
But it goes back to, I think we talked about this long before even free agency came around. I felt like they'd bring both those guys back to begin with, because I just think you know both of them very well. You know their strengths and their weaknesses, and they both have shown that they can be contributors and that they're solid players. And you don't go around in the NFL letting good players leave the building. I think at some point they wanted to bring them back at a certain rate.
At a price, yes.
Yes, and that's the key to this whole thing. Let them set the market. The market obviously spoke, and they were able to bring back Coleman and Snead, and we'll see where they fit in. They have no obligation to either one of them. They could actually release them if they don't make the team in camp. But why not get them in the mix and see where it takes them?
Has Snead signed the tender?
No.
Not yet, no.
He is
and
not.
He has till Friday, right?
No, he has till Friday to sign with another team. If he
Gotcha.
does not sign an offer sheet with another team, it's Saints or bust.
Yeah, and he's going to sign. He wants a job.
Well, he could sign after Friday. He could sign it whenever he wants. But
Right.
we were Josh Katzenstein reported earlier this week he's going through the offseason program with the Saints, which to me signifies that he will be around for OTAs and training camp. But Jeff's right. If you want to go in a different direction, you can cut them, and you don't have to pay the $1.9 million, because that's the base salary. You have no signing bonus or anything attached to that tender. But if you keep them all, you're probably in pretty good shape at wide receiver, but it affects what you do with some other roster spots. All right, let's take a break right here on the show. When we get back, we'll shift gears, talk NFL draft, making his debut appearance. He probably had no idea he'd ever actually appear on the show, but Aaron Fisher, NOLA.com's video guru, we want to talk with him because they've got a pretty cool series coming up, episode 1 of Road to the Pros. It's on NOLA.com and on NOLA.com's YouTube page, and it's a series about prospects trying to get to the draft. Their first edition came out yesterday, and it's on Dante Jackson. So just want to talk with Aaron for a couple minutes about that. Also, don't forget the Saints. Apparently, their 2006 draft class stinks. And then also, final segment, we will talk Pelicans, Blazers one more time. You'll hear from Damian Lillard and C.J. McCollum. So We'll talk with Aaron Pisher next. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, and the iHeartRadio app. Dunc Holder.